Alright, so I'm going to walk through how I did the gutters and downs of this house specifically. There's nothing really special about this house other than maybe the fact that I can stand here and measure this when usually I'd be on a ladder doing it. So that was nice to be able to do that, but it's a pretty typical house. It's a little bit smaller, but other than that,
Fifteen
most everything on
nine.
this house was typical of any other one I've done. Yeah, but I'm just getting the measurements here. I like to make a diagram to start of the house, just so I'm clear on where I'm at and I'm not mismarking something or mismeasuring something. And I just like to keep it consistent and do all the net measurements at first, and then I'll make a cut list after I subtract for inside miters or outside miters or whatever I'm doing. So as long as I keep it consistent and everything, then it'll be all good. But yeah, the longest run here I think is 26.8, which is a pretty short run. I am by myself on this one, so that's not like short for one person. I mean, I've hung, I think the longest I've hung by myself is 45 feet, which is not, it's not the easiest thing, but 26 really isn't that far, especially for 5 inch. So that was nice that I could do all this on my own here.
22.
But yeah, I'm just getting the measurements
11.
here and trying to be consistent, and I don't want to make a miscut because that'd be a bad day. So, yeah, just being consistent and marking them all down. I'm just cutting this is how I think most people get their coil, is just wrapped like this. So I'm just undoing that, and it's already loaded on the spindle and everything. And I'm gonna dog ear it about 4 inches up or so, and on both sides, just to make sure it runs smoothly to begin with. And yeah, never had any problems with it jamming or anything like that. So this is a 5-6 combo machine. So the only thing that could be wrong is really if I forgot to move, a roller or something, or like the guide that starts it, there's two stop blocks that kind of, if it's 5 inch or 6 inch. So other than if I mismove those, it's really impossible to misload the machine. So, but you see me, I'm pulling in and out there to start it, just so that I can, start the groove and it runs easier to begin with. I don't know, that's just what I was taught, and it's never jammed or anything like that. So that's what I do. Then I'm just spraying the guillotine with some WD-40 just to lubricate it so that it cuts easier to begin with. I don't know what other people use, but that is what I use. So, but yeah, I'm just running it out here, and I'm gonna get my first stand set up about, I don't know, what is that, 6 feet away, maybe 5 feet. Maybe that's a little farther than I usually do, but I don't know. I don't like it to, you know, hang off of the machine there too far before it hits the first stands. But yeah, and where my left hand is, there is the controls. I'm just holding down the run button. You can set it to run or jog. I like to set it to jog just so that, I have to hold the button. If you set it to run, you can just push it and it'll go, and you push it to stop. But I like to hold it just in case something does happen or whatever. I don't know. That's just how I feel comfortable doing it. So, and then here, like the measurement's 15.5. So to the front of the guillotine there, I'm going to go to 15.4 1/2. And so it's a 1/2 inch to the blade from there. So that's how I measure that there. And then I'm going to, yeah, chop it, cut it here, which is pretty easy if it's, lubricated and it's still sharp. So do that, and then I'm going to just set it to the side. And I know a lot of guys, they like to put hangers in, as it's running out, and that's fine. And I do that too when I have another person with me. But when I'm just by myself like this, I am just kind of doing a piece at a time. And when you set them upside down like that on the grass, the hangers tend to kind of fall out or whatever. So I'm just doing them one at a time. So, and so at this house, they actually didn't have any power, which is kind of crazy. Even at new construction jobs, usually they have some kind of power to the site, but this one they didn't, so I had to run a generator, which was a little unfortunate, but it is what it is. So that's what the noise is in the background. But yeah, and yeah, all these measurements. I mean, at least from what I've experienced, gutters aren't a precise, thing. They're not a precise trade. You can be, an inch back. Like for example, like on outside miters, I minus an inch for outside miters on my measurements. So I know some guys though that minus 2 inches because the outside miter still covers with if you subtract 2, if you're 2 inches back from the fascia. So there's not really, as long as you're covering with your miter and you have, the correct amount of sealant and whatever, there's not really a, precise measurement that you need to go to for anything, to be honest. So, I don't know, it's kind of left up to who's doing it, essentially. But there are, obviously standards, but you can not get away with, but you can do it multiple ways. So, but unless it's like a roof cut or something, you don't need to be exact. So, but yeah, I'm just putting in hangers here. I have always done 2 feet, 3 feet away is usually about what I do, and I'm just eyeballing it because, again, it's not a precise thing. Gutter is really not that heavy. It's a very light gauge, metal, so it doesn't need a whole lot, and 2 or 3 feet away from each hanger is plenty. So that's what I'm doing there. And so on this piece, I'm going to, obviously since I'm by myself, I've got to be in the middle to hold it there. And so I'm going to just kind of push up. My high point is on the right and the down is on the left. So I'm going to push up all the way in the middle and then bring it down, just kind of, it's just a feeling, just bring it down enough to where I think it'll have fall from right to left. And I'm going to put 1 screw in, and then on this right side, I'm just going to push all the way up because this is my high point. Then I'm just gonna move down with my bullet level and make sure I've got fall, and then screw off the next one. And then keep the process going. So I don't know if you can see the bubble here, but I'm just on the right side. I'm still within it, but I'm just on the right side, and from what I know is that is right at 1/8 inch fall, which is enough to keep water moving. Yeah, so like I said there, I'm essentially just having the bubble on the line, which is enough fall to keep water moving, like I said. So that's the amount of fall that I try to typically have. And obviously you can have more, but then it kind of looks weird on the fascia if you're, going down heavy. So that is, I could be incorrect, but I've never, had any problems with water flowing before, so that's just kind of what I've kept doing. But if other people have different ways of doing it, but that's how I think about fall, or slope, or whatever you want to call it. On this one, I'm just lining up the 2 pieces so that the miter will come together nicely and it looks even. So again, I just put 1 screw in the middle where I feel like it'll need to be, and then I'm gonna go where I need to be on the right side here, and then I'll put my bullet level in there and make sure I've got fall back the other way. So the way I do outside miters is I like to do a bead underneath, just as kind of an added insurance. I don't know that it's necessary by any means, but it's just kind of extra insurance, and I'd rather not be called back for anything. And I've never had any miters leak, so I'm guessing that the way I'm doing it is good, but of course there's a lot of ways to do things, but I like to just make sure I'm not going to have any leaks. So I've got to usually undo the screws on the end there, typically, or the hangers each time, to get the miter to slip up behind it. I'm just going to push up all the way in the back and then snap around those pieces. A lot of times, I don't know if it's our gutter or what, the way it runs out, but a lot of times I don't snap the greatest. I'm not sure why on the top there, but I don't know. Sometimes, or most of the time they do, but sometimes they don't. But anyway, so I like to put 4 screws in it, 2 on the bottom and 2 in the face. That's just how I've done it. Don't know if that's the correct way or whatever, but I'm just going to eyeball what straight looks like there, and I'll put 1 in the bottom, 1 there, and then it's not going anywhere, so then I'm going to do the other 2 screws without really thinking a whole lot, because it's not going anywhere. And then I'll just do the same process on the other side. And you'll see here the drip edge on some of the corners, they did not wrap it around. They just kind of, ran one side around, or ran one side straight and then the other one into that. So it's not wrapped around, which will make it eventually, it will leak behind my miter, my gutter miter, if they don't wrap it around like that, like they should, or like I think they should. So I've got a kind of geocell, you'll see I'll have to put sealant, up on the drip edge there just to make sure that it, flows down and into the miter and not, behind the miter. So, and I like to put a screw in the backside there just to secure everything, make sure it's not going anywhere. Then I like to put the tip of the tube into the screw, and then I just, give it a little squeeze, and that is enough sealant, it feels like, to, yeah, leave it to where it's not going to leak. And it's an easy way, you just put it onto the screw, and it has never leaked for me, as far as I know. So, and the only thing with miters, the only trick with sealant, I guess, is, or what I've been taught, I guess I should say, is that if you can see the joint or the seam, that you don't have enough. And it may look like there's a lot of sealant, which, to be honest, there is a lot. And GeoCell's a fairly aggressive, sealant. It's not gonna let go anytime soon, so it'll hang in there. But I'd rather water, it has to still flow around there, and it definitely will. But it might have to work a touch harder than if you have less. But I've seen a lot of leaky miters where there's just not enough sealant, and yeah, I've had a good success with doing this amount of sealant. So again, it does look like a lot, and it kind of is, but it keeps the water out of those seams. So, and I like to tool the corners there like that, just to make sure that, because that's typically where water would flow, is into those corners, not necessarily the main body of the seam, but into the corners. So then I'm gonna do the outlets here, or the downspout punches. I know a lot of guys that like to use the hand punch, but I really like this. I forget where it's from. But it always centers it, and it doesn't scratch the bottom. That's a big thing, actually. It doesn't scratch the bottom of the gutter, which the hand one seems like it does a lot. So this one has been nice, and it's clean and centered and everything, so I've just stuck with this one. But yeah, you just bring the bottom two pieces there and screw it, and it'll clamp and make a perfect cut. So yeah, but then I will just geocell the bottom of the cup, and again, it's just kind of extra insurance. It's like with the miter, you don't need to do this. You're going to do a sealant on the top, but that's just extra insurance. And then I'm going to put 2 zips in it. And I like to angle the zips just a little bit back towards the cup, just so that the elbow, when I do the downs, is a little easier, or goes on there a little easier. So and I'm going to do geocell, and again, yeah, I just don't want to see that joint or the seam or whatever. And I'm going to tool the edges, and yeah, that is how I do those. And I'm going to just make sure that zip screws are covered as well. The return on this, the fascia, or sorry, the soffit, I mean, is only, it's very, I forget what the exact measurement was, but it was very short. It's a small soffit return. So I would much rather it be, bigger, and you have to put a piece in between them, because cutting elbows is a little bit tricky, and you can only go so far before the other one bottoms out in the other one, and it, kind of blocks water rather than not. So it's a little bit weird just putting 2 elbows together when you have to cut them like that. It's not the greatest fit ever, but it is what it is on the, yeah, the soffit just is what it is. It's only, I don't know, 10 inches there. So, but I'm just putting the 2 elbows up there, and I'm going to screw it off, and yeah, just make sure it looks good at the top there. So then I'm going to hang my first strap and just kind of eyeball it and touch it with the SDS. This is all masonry here, so got to use the SDS, and I've seen guys use plugs, but I have felt like it worked just having the right bit and the right screw, and it's definitely held in there on some nicer houses with some longer gutter, or yeah, down runs. So I feel like it's worked well just doing it like that. And then I'll just place my bottom elbow where I want it, and I'll make my mark, and then I'll measure in between. And they go in, the elbows go in about 1.5 inches on both sides, so I'll add 3, because 1.5 inches on both sides is 3 inches, quick math, and then I'll cut it and I'll crimp the cut side, or I try to. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes both are cut sides, but I try to leave the factory and just crimp the cut side. So I'm doing there, and then I'm place my second strap here, and I try to place the strap in a way that allows the elbow and the I guess the down to kind of overlap so that you can get a screw in both with one rather than having to screw the elbow to the down as well as the strap, screwing into the down, but instead they can kind of both, you can get 2 for 1 essentially, is what I'm saying. I don't know if that's what I'm conveying, but that's what I'm trying to say. So you'll see, just gonna screw them off. And I know some guys like to make their own saddles or the hangers for the downs, but I've just always, I don't know, it's easier and quicker to just go with the pre-made one. So, but you can see here I'm putting one, it's a little closer there, but I'm putting one into the top, into the main down, and then one into the elbow as well, and then it just kind of holds them together there, and they're not going to go anywhere or separate or anything like that. So that's what that is. And yeah, I'm just going to cut the extension, and the homeowner placed all the downs and wanted the extensions to be what they are and everything like that, so I didn't really, obviously I had an opinion on it, but as long as water's moving away from the house, that is what I'm going to do. So yeah, and so I finished up there, and it's a pretty small house. I think it was only 165 feet of gutter, so it's a pretty small house, but anyways, it's a pretty standard gutter job and everything like that. So, but this is just how I do it, and this is how this job went.